The Liberation Organization and Africa watching with keen interest the developments here in South Africa. The governing party in South Africa, the ANC, has lost its majority and the country will have to navigate the process of then putting together a new government. International news editor Sophie Mokoena spoke to Dr. Innocent Batsani-Ncube, who is a lecturer at African politics.
The African continent is still digesting the outcome of the national election in South Africa. Particularly the liberation organizations on the continent will be looking at what the foreign policy will be like post the election. But to unpack this with us, we have Dr. Innocent Batsani-Ncube from the University of London, who is going to speak to us about his observations as he has been following the elections and the results here at the Results Center. Doctor, you have been watching voting and also now announcements of results. As we are about to finalize this process, what are your observations?
Thank you. I think my observations are that this was a festival of democracy. The process went well. The IEC did a splendid job in organizing this massive operation. Of course, there are glitches here and there. I was in a rural, voting station in Tolone Primary School, deep in KwaZulu-Natal. I saw the VMDs had some challenges, but over and above, I think the IEC did a splendid job in organizing this election.
Now, you spoke about your observations in relation to the rural countryside. Do you think voters in particular, because there were lots of changes, 3 ballots and the issue of the VD, the voters themselves, did the IEC do a proper job in terms of educating, particularly the rural countryside where the levels of illiteracy is quite high?
Yeah, so in our briefings and also reading around, I think the IEC did a good job, and also it partnered with a number of media organizations to check out that message. But also what I observed is that at the voting station where I was, most elderly voters knew, for example, their voting station. I saw young people who, I think 3 or so in my time there, my 4 hours in that voting station, who were turned away because they'd come to a wrong voting station. But I think there was a sense of good civic education, and voters sort of had an understanding when they got their 3 ballots. And I think you can say 75% the IEC did a good job. Of course, it could have done better, because on the eve of the election, I noticed that some people didn't know about the fact that they needed to inform the IEC about their change of address. So,
Prof, let's talk about politics on the continent. Do you think our continent is beginning to develop faster to grapple with coalition politics?
Interesting question. South Africa, I think Africa is at an inflection point, because South Africa is key to it. The liberation movements in the region, for example, are watching this election quite closely, because if the ANC gets into a coalition with parties, for example, that don't share their ideological framework, it might also create challenges in terms of South Africa's foreign policy, and this will have an impact on that. So coalition politics in South Africa will be something that African countries are watching, and also analysts are watching, because we don't know how it will play out at the national level. Of course, we have seen at the local level that coalitions seldom work well.
Well, the issue of foreign policy, as you pointed out, is very critical. If ANC was to compromise which areas they can perhaps compromise on foreign policy. For example, the relationship with the region, the relationship with Africa, and the relationship with the globe.
I think the ANC is not necessarily just for the ANC, it's also for South Africa, because South Africa's position in the region is that it has to be seen as a team player. So there is a sense that the South African foreign policy should be sensitive to those dynamics in the region, because if the foreign policy changes dramatically, it will create a number of challenges, particularly within SADC, because we know historically that there have been these challenges. You remember the Mandela Mugabe, TIF, and also even pre-1994, where South Africa was sort of excluded. We don't want to go to that. So I think even other parties themselves who might have diametrically opposed foreign policy to the ANC, it is in their interest when they get into government to try to find that thin balancing act so that the region remains stable. When South Africa is stable, the region is stable.